Hello race fans, Alex Weaver here in Studio 3. You guys should be excited because you saw a heck of a race at Talladega and we're going to talk about it. I have Jesse and Chase here with me. Let's talk about Chase Elliott gets a first win of the 2019 season. Awesome day for the 9 team.
Awesome day for the number 9 team. Awesome day for all the fans, everyone. It was an amazing race. We saw 3-4 wide racing. Edge of your seat. The cars were out of control. They were hard to drive, and they were still able to put on an amazing show. And then we end with Mr. Popular winning the race.
I think you hit the nail on the head there when you said that the fans won, especially because we got Talladega racing at its finest. We got 3 wide, we got 4 wide at times, we got 2 big ones with less than 10 laps to go, and then we got a first time this season winner in victory lane. So I really don't think it gets better than that.
Well, let's talk about the turning point for Hendrick. We saw them kind of be competitive at Martinsville. Chase talked about that being his best race so far this season. Now he gets a win. He qualified 11th, led 45 laps, won stage 2, led the final lap, which is the only one that matters really in NASCAR. Is this the turning point that Hendrick Motorsports needed?
I think it gives Hendrick momentum with Chase Elliott breaking into victory lane, getting Chevy the first win of the season and all that. But I still think they have a little bit more to prove on intermediate racetracks for me to be completely sold this the turning point for them. So when we go to Dover this upcoming weekend, when we go to Kansas, when we go to Charlotte.
Both of those have an Elliott win as well.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm sure we'll get into that as well. But I think that's when we will see if Hendrick has really turned it around.
I don't know that this is necessarily, we haven't seen consistency, and given the way that this race went, and the last time we saw a performance like this was at Daytona, we all know how that race went. So I believe it when I see it, I guess, with more consistency. And like you said, heading to Dover next week, it's there, but Dover is kind of its own animal, or its own monster, if you will.
Yeah, I see what you did there. I love it.
Well, and I think Chase was pretty excited about this one too. The fans, it's almost a home race for him. He's not that far from Dawsonville. Does this win mean a little bit more for number 9?
I think it definitely does, and I'm going to go maybe as far to say, I know we call it Earnhart country, and it probably always will be Earnhardt country, but I saw a little bit of Elliott country in there too, with Bill Elliott recording the fastest lap at Talladega ever recorded for NASCAR a while back, and then to bookend it with Chase Elliott getting his first race win at Talladega. That crowd reaction was absolutely amazing. Chase said that he felt like he had the crowd in the palm of his hand.
Maybe that was the first time that it really had sunk in for him. Yeah. And that maybe goes back to what we were saying in the history that track has for the Elliott family. And I have to imagine the only better place to be than Talladega on that Sunday evening was Dawsonville, Georgia.
The siren.
A little jealous I wasn't at the pool room. All right, is this going to be the year that Chase Elliott has more than 3 wins?
I think he's going to win more than 3 races because, like I said, I still think Hendrick has a lot to prove, but Chase Elliott has been the strongest driver out of the entire camp. I think another point is Alex Bowman had a really good finish that might spark something for the number 88 team. And then we saw William Byron and Jimmy Johnson have their struggles there in the race. But I really think that Chase Elliott's going to win more than 3. And honestly, we could see some consecutive wins from him coming up because, like you said, Alex, he got a win at Dover and Kansas last year. That's our next 2 races. We could see 3 in a row from number 9.
I think a lot of this conversation has come with the fact that it was Elliott country yesterday, and there was so much history there. And I do believe that his dad passed on, those tips and tricks as to how he did such a great job at Talladega. But I need to see Chase make his own way. He really kicked it up last season in the playoffs, and he proved that he could get 3 wins. Have I seen that yet this year? I don't know. Doesn't mean he can't do it, but I need to see Chase make his own way this season.
Now, do we think kind of a wild card? Because Talladega is one of those where you don't necessarily know if you have the best car. It's kind of one of those survive in advance, and let's just see who can be at the finish line at the end of the race. Is it a dominating performance by him, or do we think that this was maybe one of those where it's your best chance for a win, so go after it?
I don't think it was the most dominating performance for him. I think it was the most strategic performance for him because him and Hendrick and Chevy all together, they were lurking all day.
Yep.
And right when they needed to restart with 4 laps to go, him and Alex Bowman teamed up, passed Joey Logano, which is arguably the best restrictor plate racer right now. Him and Brad Keselowski beat him at their own game.
I don't know if this is a dominating performance. I don't think it is, but I think there was a little bit more risk and unpredictability that played into that win than we realized.
All right, well, a W on the board is a W on the board. Let's talk about the Chevys, though. They work together. We saw a lot of teamwork between the Chevys and the Ford. We also heard from every single crew chief in the garage that there was a lot of team meetings manufacturer-wise this weekend. Is this the oomph that Chevy needed and kind of the comeback? If they hadn't have won this race, it would have been the longest non-win streak since 1971 out of Chevy. They needed this one bad.
Yeah, they really did. And hearing Alan Gustafson after the race talk about how Chevy has tried to have these meetings before and it's just never really worked out. But I think this weekend going into it, they knew they needed to team up. This was their chance to really shine and turn Chevy around for everybody, not just one team, not just for Chase Elliott, not for Hendrick, it's for everybody. And they beat Ford at their own game. We saw in October that Stewart-Haas Racing and Ford, they all teamed up, dominated all of the race. It's safe to say that.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the most Chevys that we've seen in the top 10 since Daytona, and man, to be a fly on the wall in that Chevy meeting, I like to believe that it was somewhat of coming to Jesus. They really called the team in and said, look, you guys, we need to work together as a team. And Chase, you really nailed it there when you said that it was a game of strategy, and they beat the Fords at their own game.
Let's talk about the good versus the bad. I have some good surprises coming out of Dega, and I have some bad surprises coming out of Talladega. The first good one that I have is, let's talk about the Sunoco rookies. You have Ryan Preece and Daniel Hemrick finish in the top 10. Ryan Preece cranks out a P3 finish, Daniel Hemrick P5. Oh, so top 5 for the rookies. A surprising finish for both of them.
Ryan Preece is a rookie, but his finish, his third place finish, didn't really surprise me because of what we saw at Daytona and the Daytona 500 out of him.
Yep.
One, being able to avoid that massive
Finished
wreck.
8th in that race,
Yeah,
too.
finished 8th, yeah. And being able to avoid the wreck and then put himself in position to potentially win the Daytona 500 in his rookie season. Didn't really surprise me as much that he was able to finish P3 in Talladega. He's just he's a good racer all around, but he's really coming into his own at super speedway races for sure.
When you're so new getting into this car and getting into this series, you want to race hard, and you don't quite have everything under your belt yet. But I think that's what you can't look past with Preece, is that he is patient and he knows when to race hard, when to wait it out, get around some of these wrecks, and when to capitalize. And it's worked out for him so far, like we saw it at Daytona and this past weekend at Talladega.
Brad Keselowski, who, did you pick to win or did Merriman pick to win? One of us last week picked to win this race.
I'm going to blame it on Merriman since
He
he's not here.
It's always Merriman's fault.
Yeah.
He finishes 13, and then Martin Truex Jr. finishes 20th. And I can't tell you how many DNFs he's had at Talladega, but he cannot seem to figure this track out. And Kez, who I thought had it figured out, all he did basically all day long was had that stud spin in the pits.
That was absolutely. I tweeted, I'm like, I think he's just showing off at that point.
was.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
But
This was like a clean finish.
yeah, it was amazing. But I think that surprised me too. Brad's finish. That pit stop really put him behind. He tried to rally back and he just couldn't. And he was up front all day with Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney. Jimmy Johnson too, like just more bad luck.
Yep.
Running over some debris, hitting the wall, didn't even have a chance to see what he had and join his Hendrick Motorsports teammates at the front. So that was pretty unfortunate for him.
I think that has to be the most frustrating thing as a driver when it's not something that you did. It's not your making that created the issue. You run over debris. Talk about like,
Yeah.
what a way to go out.
Debris of all things. It's
Yeah.
another thing if you get caught up in a wreck and
Yeah,
you're one of the
exactly.
guys in the back,
Yeah.
but it's like, really, who left this here?
Exactly. Yeah. So that, and then like you said, Martin Truex Jr. He just has been able to turn it on super speedway tracks. It'll come for him maybe, but this weekend just wasn't the time. And I thought maybe he had a really good shot because the momentum from getting his first short track win at Richmond, he was all excited and like, let's get our first super speedway win while we're at it, but just didn't happen for him today.
Yeah, piggybacking off of that, I actually was going to mention that I think, Truex would probably be sweating a little bit more if he hadn't picked up that win a few weeks ago. But I don't know. I think that was one of the great things about this race, though, was that we saw some of our big contenders or some of our expected guys take some pretty big hits unexpectedly. And that was one of the great things that made this race so exciting.
Kind of the beast of Talladega, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Crazy wreck for Kyle Larson.
Yeah, and hearing him talk after the race, one, he was really calm about it. He's like, yeah, I mean, but he's been used to flipping in sprint cars. But he said that was the longest flip that he's ever had. That's just a product of the last lap. Everybody's trying to go for the same real estate, no matter if it's first or 25th.
Yeah, that wreck that we saw, it really wasn't anything other than a product of racing at Talladega. No one's at fault there, but obviously happy to see Larson walk away okay. And that one, raised a lot of eyebrows because that was the biggest incident that we've seen this season or in from Larson. Do we count him out for the playoffs? I don't know, we're 10 races in. It's a pretty long season, but I definitely think some changes need to be made.
Is he in danger of missing the playoffs? He has his highest finish this year is 7th, and that was back at Daytona in February. Could he now be an uh-oh to not even make it in the playoffs?
I am starting to be a little concerned. I know it's early in the season, and we shouldn't freak out about it. He's had so much bad luck. He hasn't been able to put a complete race together, not even close.
The other thing we have to look at too is, however far we are into the season, we've already had enough races where we've seen enough different styles of racing, enough different tracks that we haven't seen Larson. He hasn't given us anything that I can say, oh, he did really well in that short track. Let's see short tracks moving forward. I don't know. All of the tracks seem to have been giving him issues, so I don't really know that you can make that prediction. I definitely think he's in trouble. I think he's probably sweating a little bit, but I don't know that you can completely count him out.
Is the mental game too far gone, though? I feel like Larson is very much in his head. And maybe not. Maybe that's just me and how I think that I would handle being behind the wheel and not finishing consecutively every single week. But do you reach a certain point in the season where you can't flip it? You can't turn that bad luck streak.
And that's a good point, because after Richmond, when he wrecked, he's like, oh, this is so much fun, guys. I'm having a blast, basically.
Great season so far, I think was his quote.
Yes. He's like, that's just dejection.
Yeah.
That's just like, you're right. I don't know if you can come back from that unless like they have a fluke race where they really turn it on and it gives them the momentum and the confidence back. But Kyle Larson knows, we all know he has the talent, but it's just, you can't put together the complete race. Is it the team, is it giving him the car that he wants to? Is it Kyle maybe pushing too hard in the middle of a race? Who knows what it is? Only they know that.
Kyle Larson's one of the hardest people to read, in my opinion.
True.
He seems really calm, and I would have to imagine that he'd be in his head, but I don't know. He's not letting us on to any of his emotions for the most part. He's kind of surprised us, if anything. So I don't know. I can't get a grasp on him.
So right now, I guess that you guys are both agreeing. Kyle Larson in your championship, or let's just say playoffs. In your playoffs at all. In your bracket?
Right now, Kyle Larson is not in my bracket of 16 drivers.
Okay.
No.
I'll agree with you there. Yeah.
All right. All right, let's talk about, I know Chase is going to be excited about this one. Let's talk about Ryan Blaney. I've been excited about him before this season, but I started clapping because the quote that he had on his scanner was, "I'm tired of babysitting my teammates." And I thought, it's about time. He's been too nice all season long. How do you feel about it?
Ryan, if you're watching this, thank you. You're showing some aggressiveness. You're tired of it. You're tired of your teammates stealing the show. And I know he was talking about that particular race, but there's a deeper meaning to that. He wants to be in victory lane. He's frustrated that both of his teammates are locked in the playoffs right now, and he's not. We saw he was driving mad this weekend for sure.
And I liked it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
liked seeing him drive
Me too.
mad. I want that aggression to show too. I was joking with Chase though before we sat down that I was at Bowman Gray Stadium this past weekend watching short track racing on Saturday. So my scale of aggressive racing might be a tad off because they're incredibly aggressive there. But I would like to see a little bit more of that from Ryan Blaney. I think you're on it when you say he's so close, but I don't think he's going to get that win if he continues to babysit his teammates. I think at some point he's got to kind of take the bull by the horns and put himself in victory lane. He's the only person that can do that, and I think it's time for him to do that, and I'm ready to see it. I'm excited.
I think at some point, points are great. If you can lock yourself in with a win to the playoffs, you can kind of control your own destiny the rest of the season instead of having to worry about, oh gosh, I have to win.
Right.
So.
And I think a win, I've said this the whole time. And
We know that you are a Ryan Blaney fan.
yes, the win.
We know, Chase.
The win is coming soon. I just have a lot of confidence in him. And who knows when it'll be. It could be this upcoming weekend at Dover, which is also Chase Elliott's bread and butter after last year. But I don't know. I just know it's going to happen soon.
Chase is just going to keep saying it every week and pick Ryan Blaney until it finally comes, and then he's going to say, I didn't know when it was going to happen, but it happened this week, and I was right.
And then I can say I was right, because I'm not giving you a date or a race. I'm just saying he's going to win. So when it happens, I'm like, told you.
All right, well, Chase, I know you're going to be excited when Ryan Blaney finally breaks through, but let's look ahead to this weekend. We're at Dover International Speedway. Let's talk about who is a possibility to win. Is it a Chase Elliott back-to-back?
I'm not sold on a Chase Elliott back-to-back. I know he won there in the fall, and he's always been really good there. He's finished second.
Harvick in the spring, guys.
That is my point. Yeah, you definitely are on the same wavelength there with me. I think Kevin Harvick could definitely win this race and go back-to-back in the spring race at Dover. He hasn't gotten a win yet. People are talking about it, like where's the spark going to come from the number 4 team? I think it may be. I think it comes this weekend. I'm going to say that's my pick to win this weekend is Kevin Harvick. I think him and crew chief Rodney Childers, they're going to figure it out and they're going to get back in victory lane so we can stop all the talk about what's wrong with the number 4 team. Nothing's wrong. They finished up there. They just need to get that win.
Hopping off the Penske train, huh?
Yeah, that's safe to say.
Just this week, he'll be back.
Yeah, as much as I support Ryan and the Penske guys, I think Dover will not belong to them. It'll belong to SHR, somebody from there, for sure.
You know, I think the talk about the 4 team is, as much as it is maybe frustrating, it's valid because this time last season he was looking at, 4 wins already?
Yep.
Something like it.
He got taken out pretty early in Talladega, too. I think he was a little frustrated. I think he's been frustrated all season. Y'all can say that he's not, but he is.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. I definitely think there's some frustration there, especially when you look at where we were this time last season. But heading to Dover this weekend, obviously, total different race here. I don't think we can sleep on Kurt Busch. I know he's probably just as frustrated. His best finish coming, in second to his brother. And I have a brother. I have a couple brothers. I can imagine that would be incredibly frustrating. But no, he performed incredibly well at both races at Dover last season. 5th place in both. So I really think if he's going to have a shot in the next couple of weeks, we could see Kurt Busch in victory lane.
Yeah, Kurt's a good pick. We're both on the SHR train. And also, too, like you said, Kevin Harvick's been really frustrated. And that's when his team performs the best, is when he's really mad, and he's gonna let him know.
Well, we know that a mad Kevin Harvick is a dominant Kevin Harvick, so it'll be interesting to see what he does. Will he be raising Miles the Monster? We don't know. We'll have to find out this Sunday at 2 p.m. on FS1. But for now, we're going to say hello to all of the partiers still partying in Dawsonville, Georgia. Congratulations to the 9 camp. And we will see you guys right back here for another edition of Backseat Drivers.